Welcome to Six Count. I'm your host, Sarah Wild, bringing you the voices and stories of jazz from Durham, North Carolina. Thank you all so much for joining Six Count this beautiful afternoon in Durham. For our listeners and just voice matching purposes, will each of you share your name and what instrument, or instruments I should say, that you play for DreamRoot?
All right, I'm Theous Jones. I play drum set and percussion in DreamRoot.
Hey y'all, I'm Joe McPhail. I play keyboards for DreamRoot and, keyboards and piano.
I'm Ittai Korman, and I play bass, both electric and upright.
Very nice. And I became aware of your music by attending your album release party of Leaf at the North Star Church of the Arts on October 28th. So first off, just congratulations, and what were some highlights from that performance?
It's been a long time coming. We recorded the album, what was it, a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a year ago in Upstate New York. And, you know, with recording music and getting the album out, it's a process to getting things to the album release. So, you know, just getting there and being on the stage, it was like kind of a breath of fresh air. Like, all right, we're here. You know, the album is done. We can give them out. It's legal to give the music out now. So it's a process, you know.
Yeah, an album is always kind of a crazy undertaking with like 4 different processes that all have their own experience. And so being able to play it live and kind of use the album and have it be in the world instead of just in the computer is, you know, very nice.
It takes so much to bring an album together. We spent so much time getting the album cover art, all the ticket sales and whatever and all of that. So it was just nice to kind of give the music life again in a new space. We recorded the album in August 2021. We went to Upstate New York in the Catskills, and during the pandemic, I kind of learned how to be a recording engineer. And along with Joe and Lynn Grissett, we recorded the album by ourselves in this big house in upstate New York. And we took like 7-8 days and just recorded all day, every day. It was pretty intense, but we made it happen.
I feel like as a band, we've been this kind of ongoing collective. And so we've had 2 kind of radically different album creation processes. The first one, we just went in a studio and did the basic tracks for the 11 songs in 2 days, which I don't recommend, but we did it. And so this one, it was like the ability to get fewer songs and really work on them in like kind of more of a holistic way was very nice.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear your background and how you arrived at Durham, or if you're from here, you met at different gigs around town. And I know if someone were interested in coming to the Triangle in Durham specifically, they might be interested in knowing what those sort of essential venues are. So would you give us a glimpse into how you came together and the sort of places that you were hunting at the time?
A lot of the universities around here are like hubs for like jazz musicians that are majoring in music and looking in, you know, to get into the real world and start working. I've been in Durham since 2006, and, you know, I've been playing gigs in the area and stuff like that. And, you know, through networking, we kind of crossed paths. And I think me and Ittai had met on a gig in downtown Durham at a location that's not open anymore, called Cuban Revolution. It was a really cool spot. But yeah, we used to play down there a lot. And Joe, same thing with him. I can't remember where we met if it was on a gig or something, but just through networking. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on a hotel gig. And I remember the second or third gig that we did, Sharonova from the band My Brightest Diamond was like doing a performance and was just like, oh, you guys are doing all right. You know, you should keep working at it. And that was kind of a nice, you know, foundational thing.
Yeah. Now, doubling back on the venues for people coming to Durham or the Triangle area. For Durham, I recommend Kingfisher. That's a good spot. They have live jazz down there. You may catch a jazz trio there. Oh, like in Raleigh, there's Watson Ward. I don't go to Raleigh that much, but they have live music there. And I mean, usually once you come to the Triangle area, once you talk to a few people, they're going to tell you where the spots are at, and then you'll just kind of end up there.
Would you say that the culture is more collegial then and wanting to network, or is there still some of that essential competitiveness, or how do you sort of think about the triangle scene?
No, I think it's still collegial, but I think there's a sense of competitiveness to keep the music at a certain level. You know what I mean? Because everybody's playing this music as like a whole. So we're trying to hold it to a certain standard from like, you know, the oldies, like they did back in the day. They held music to a certain standard. That's why it sounded so good. So, you know, there's a little bit of both in a sense. So, and, you know, a little competition isn't bad. It's all fun.
Yeah, coming from New York, it's definitely a lot more cutthroat in New York than it is here, just in terms of like, if somebody doesn't like you or like you're playing, then you're out. And here there is a really nice standard that everyone holds each other to, like Theous was saying, but people will take the time to bring you up as opposed to just cut you out.
I know you've described yourselves as political jazz or neo soul and using R&B. So how are you thinking about the utility of genre in this latest album? Is that useful, or is it more so drawing what you want and being able to express different things through that difference?
Well, I feel like some of these early tags with like calling ourselves political jazz, it was kind of this attempt to fuse like neo soul and funk into the music. But I think there was a realization that we are kind of a jazz band, but in an expansive, you know, manner, I guess. You have people like Christian Scott talking about stretch music. And I think it was Nicholas Payton.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, who had the concept of Black American music, BAM. And kind of that idea of jazz as an expansive genre that's not necessarily a limited box is kind of what we're going for. And we all have our own distinct voices on the instruments. So a lot of it's just the negotiation and like what comes out at the end of all that negotiation.
Using the word negotiation I like because that's true in how each person brings a different flavor and your different preferences. So do you have to have a sort of agreement of the sound you're hoping to achieve, or is the sound that you create the product of all of these other different decisions that go into it?
I feel like you have the goal, and then you have the journey, and then you end up kind of 45 degrees away from the goal, but it's a new goal that has its own thing to it. And that's kind of the process. But there's something beautiful in that, because you kind of find the thing as much as, you know, force it.
Yes. And I was reading about phases and how the meeting perhaps changed a bit from when you recorded it and released it in May 2020, when there was, of course, the beginning of this craziness that has been. And so I want to ask what Leaf is in contrast to Phases. Is it a continuation and still an exploration of music as healing or in expressing the struggles of life? Or what other messages do you hope to convey?
It's a continuation of Phases in a different manner. You know, music is about emotion. It's the push and the pull. You know, going into this latest album, we didn't go into it with the intention of like, oh, this song has to mean this for this particular audience. We were just producing a product that people can, you know, love and accept and just feel, you know, something that feels good. And then you use your imagination for your own intent and purpose. So that's kind of what that is all about.
Yeah, I feel like we were just trying to push ourselves to create something kind of unique that we could call our own. We're all kind of creators and songwriters, where with each album, we've all contributed a few different songs and then also co-created songs. So it's kind of this kind of mesh that we're building with all of the different people who have come by and done melodies. You know, as a collective, we've just kind of created these kind of pieces together.
And why do you say collective? Is it the idea of community or those who you feature? Or where does that come from as opposed to just saying trio?
I feel like, well, we've had all of these different melodists play with us over the last, I guess, 6 or 7 years, where we've had, you know, we've got Serena Wiley, Lynn Grissett, we've got Michael Hanna, and then, yeah, we had Carisha Roy on an album. We had Phineas Nyong'oro with us. And so we have all these people come through, and they, as much as us, lend their voices and their melody and kind of bring different things out of us in the creation process.
And to what extent are you thinking about the audience in terms of the kind of engagement you hope? Do you want an audience or a listener at home to be listening to everything that you're doing and have that kind of deep interaction? Or is it more so the kind of feeling overall that you want people to? Yeah, do you think about the listener experience much in your work?
From a drummer's perspective, I look at things as a whole. Like when I'm playing the drums, I want you to hear everything that I'm doing, but I want you to feel the beat, feel the groove as a whole instead of trying to listen to every little detail, But yeah, that's from a drumming perspective, I guess, though.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same with my overdubbing, where I might have, 4 to 8 different keyboards in a track, but I don't want it to necessarily sound like 8 different keyboards in a track. I just want it to create an atmosphere that still leaves room for the melody, but kind of creates a feeling. So I think, hopefully people feel it and then feel compelled to dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope that listeners listen to what we're doing, because we're really kind of expanding and coming out of different types of musics, but also we don't want to prescribe anybody to listen any kind of way. If they want to listen to it while they're washing the dishes and zoning out, great. If they want to just sit and close their eyes and,
The shower too.
then, enjoy it any way the listener enjoys it. But there are a lot of intricacies that we have, especially in this album. Like we really went into studio mode and kind of ironed out a lot of things.
What have you learned from the process of communicating with your bandmates about what you're trying to achieve? What kind of journey you're hoping someone goes on when you're playing with different aspects of the music? I
see it as feeling and energy transfer. So it's hard to communicate that, but I think that is what the music comes down to, is just like, how do we transfer an energy or a feeling, and how can somebody understand that? And I think that's what a vibe is. It's somebody's energy or something's energy or their feeling. And so that is kind of how we try to communicate between us and between the audience. And every time we play in a new space, it feels different because there's an energy. And something that was hard during the pandemic is we did a lot of recordings. Like we did a whole PBS special at the North Carolina Museum of Art, but there was no audience. There were like 6 people behind cameras, and we talked to them after. They were like, they wanted to clap, but there's an energy transfer when we perform and when we improvise that is different than us just being in a studio. And so I think that's the whole idea there.
Yeah.
I liked your stories, Ittai, between each of the songs, and you referred to stand-up, which I think that would be really hard to want to focus on your music, but no, you have to say something funny or interesting. But those tidbits are always so useful to me because it's fun to contextualize the thought process behind it. But can I ask the sauna story of why you were in the sauna and how that might have affected the song?
Yeah, well, okay, so before that, Theous and Joe and I have been working on our banter, because we're kind of like, we hide behind our instruments and just do our thing. But at performances, we've been trying to say more. So at the show, at one point I found myself talking for a while, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm talking here. I guess I'm doing stand-up. But the sauna story is that we were upstate, and there's this beautiful music room in the house we were recording in. The house was owned by a vocalist named Amelita Gallicorci, and so she created that music room, and right next to it was her warm-up room, where she would warm up her voice, and that room became a sauna, and we were trying to figure out where everybody would be, and then it so happened that just made sense for where the upright should be recorded. And it sounded amazing because it's made of all wood. So I was basically playing a bass, but it felt like I was inside of a bass. So I was like playing a bass inside of a bass. Every note that I played resonated so much that it felt like I barely had to play at all. So that was the story there. But it definitely got hot in there.
And how do you know when your work is finished for an album? That you mentioned, Joe, the 4 stages. How do you know, okay, we have enough here that I think we can live with the sound that we're creating?
I guess you get to the point where you kind of not dislike the album, but you you've just heard it so many times, you kind of lose perspective. And it's like somewhere around there, it's like, okay, it's time to finish this up or shelve it for a year. And so it's kind of just doing like little micro edits and just like these little kind of finishing touches. It's a kind of harsh process, but it's good to feel the harshness of the process because that means you're near the end.
Yeah, that's very true. As musicians, we're like our own worst critic. So the more you listen to your work, the more critical you become. You're like, oh, there's not a period here. There's a comma missing. It's like writing, something. So it's that whole perspective. So I, like Joe said, that final listen where you don't want to listen to it anymore. You're like, okay, I'm good. It's there. You take a listen and let me know what you think.
Yeah. And something that was freeing for me is the recording engineer that we worked on the first album, Scott Salter, really amazing recording engineer. And we were talking at one point kind of in between sessions, and he was like, remember that a recording is just capturing a moment in time. And then I was like, oh, yeah. And so it was freeing for me in that what we're doing when we're creating a song is we're creating some kind of art, and then when we're recording it, we're just capturing that moment at that time. And it can be different later in terms of how we play it, but that is what is captured. That has been freeing for me. And when I'm recording music is I don't put too much, as Thea said, you're your own worst critic. So I don't put too much into it. It's like, yeah, let's do this. I think it sounds as good as it can be right now for what it is.
I feel like the biggest shift between the first album and this album is with the first album, we were in this quintet formation that was performing at Beer Study over in Durham, monthly or semi-monthly, and really kind of getting the hours in. So that was very much capturing the band that existed, playing the songs that band had created together. And then this album was much more of kind of a sculpture with more of a quartet sound, where we were kind of capturing a moment and then with building all of the missing pieces around that moment to create some sort of weird macro sculpture, macro structure.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And I think of that sometimes too when I'll listen to a live recording and then one that was in a studio, and it's just totally different sometimes of what it was like. Or if you do hear that audience in the recording, that's cool too, of what you got feedback on, which I imagine is sometimes not what you think was the most impressive or interesting part of the song that someone in the audience reacts to. But that's a cool thing as well. As you all are thinking of the next project, is there anything else that you'd like to share about the Michael Hanna collaboration, where people can hear you all next, or anything else you'd like to share with 6 Count listeners?
Yeah, we're playing in January. What's the date? At Sharp 9. Sharp
good.
9 Gallery.
Yes.
In Durham. That's a venue
January
for
28th, 2023.
Yeah. We'll be there. You can check us out there. I think Mike will be on that.
Yeah.
On that show with us. Come to the Triangle. Check out music. Once you get here, there's a lot of musicians flourishing in this area. So this is the place to be. So.
Yeah, we have some tunes with Michael Hanna coming out. And before then, we've left quite the digital footprint because a lot of our functioning as a band ended up happening during the pandemic. So there's plenty of stuff to check out basically through YouTube.
That seems like a silver lining, perhaps, of not being able to gig in person.
Yeah. It makes it a little less ephemeral than a gig, which is both good and bad, depending on,
Yeah, listen to our music, check out the album, enjoy it, and we will be coming out with some more things. I think the next album will be very different. This one was instrumental, and the next one is going to be Michael Hanna on vocals, so we'll see where that takes us.
Very cool. Ittai, Theous, and Joe, thank you all so much again.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you for listening to Six Count. I'm Zara Wild. You can let us know what you thought of the episode or recommend a guest by emailing us at sixcountpodcast@gmail.com or by finding us on Twitter or Instagram at sixcountpodcast. If you'd like to support our work in telling the story of jazz in Durham, you can make a gift to the show by following the link in our episode description. Thanks for listening.